Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Beatles Forever. Today I'm going to do a short video because I was looking over my comments on the series I did on Angie McCartney and her book, My Long and Winding Road. And there was more than one viewer that wondered what happened to the relationship between Angie, Ruth, and Paul after his dad died. And it had me wondering too. So I went to the book Paul McCartney by Philip Norman and got his comments about it. Paul, as we know, was too upset over his father's death to attend his funeral. His brother Mike stated he would never face that kind of thing. So Angie continued living at the bungalow in Gayton that Paul had enabled Jim and Ruth to buy. Soon, though, the relationship in the family began to deteriorate. Jim's side of the family didn't like it when, right after the funeral, Angie and Ruth went off on a holiday to Spain. It was understandable, the author said, since Angie and Ruth had been giving round-the-clock care to Jim. Paul didn't like it either, and in Ruth's book, though, she stated that Cynthia Lennon told Angie and Ruth that they needed to get away, and so they took a cruise with Cynthia and Jim's sister looking after Jim. So I don't know if this was the same trip or if they took a trip again after he died. And then Paul, before that, stated that Angie and Ruth would never want for anything again, but the rift was there after Jim died. Angie was a widow for the second time. She was in her late 40s when Jim died. She needed to make a new life for herself. Angie went into a bad business deal, but she didn't get much into it in her book, but she had a partnership in a theatrical agency. It was a failure, and Paul didn't help rescue her when it happened. She lost everything, including the Gayton bungalow. She had mortgaged it to fund the agency. Angie and Ruth then moved to London, where they did a total of 5 low-paying jobs between them. And then they had a burglary of their rented apartment, and that left them without most of their remaining valuables. Angie was desperately short of money and sold her story to the Sun newspaper, which, without her permission, headlined it "The Mean Side of Paul McCartney," and that was all in caps. Angie had gotten several of Jim's family souvenirs when he passed away, and a few years later, Paul was mad when he read that she sold his birth certificate, and it was to an American memorabilia collector. But later, come to find out, it was only a copy. According to the Paul McCartney book, Angie, Ruth, and Paul haven't communicated since the 1970s. Angie, watching from afar, said that Jimmy Mac, that was her pet name for Jim, would be proud of Paul. I hope this answers the questions that came up about the break of communications between Paul, Angie, and Ruth. I sort of see why Paul didn't want to help Angie. His dad was gone, and he felt it was disrespectful for Angie and Ruth to go off having fun so soon after his father passed away. That was probably why he refused to lend her assistance when she made a bad business deal. And it's too bad they couldn't have stayed family, because Jim loved Angie enough to marry her, and he loved Ruth enough to adopt her, and they all needed each other, and they were good for each other, and it helped each other out when they needed it the most. This video is shorter than most of my videos. I just thought I'd answer the question of what happened between Paul and Angie, and I hope that we will find out more when we get into Mike McCartney's book in our next episodes. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, if you could give it a thumbs up, it would really help to get the channel out there for more viewers to discover. I hope everyone is having a good day, and tune in again soon for another episode of The Beatles Forever. Thank you. Bye.